Ken Howells of Howell's Old West Conversions just recently finished converting a cap and ball Colt 1851 Navy revolver into an 1870 style Colt cartridge conversion. And it's a beautiful gun, as you can see. And I thought it would be in keeping with the era of this piece if I was to load ammunition for it using antique tools. So that's what got me involved with Lyman 310 tong sets. And as most people know, uh, these were originally the Ideal Tool Company's reloading equipment, and Lyman acquired them around in the 1920s. And the Ideal kit goes back to the 1880s. Prior to that, rifle manufacturers would package up a bullet mold and a similar reloading set with their rifles and ship them off. But the Ideal Tool Company in 1885 first started making these kits, and they were made off of John Barlow's patents of the year before. And the original kits, these nutcracker type kits, also included a bullet mold on the end of them. And eventually that was done away with. And then in the 1920s, the Lyman Gunsight Company took over the Ideal Tool Company and began making them. And in fact, they continue to make them to this day. And you can buy new kits still from Lyman, or you can find used kits everywhere on the internet. And in fact, eBay is full of them, as you would expect for something that's been around for over 100 years. They are pretty easy to find. And I thought it would be in keeping with the nostalgic nature of this arm to load ammo for it. So we'll show you how that's done. I picked up a Lyman tong kit through an antique site on the internet, and it came basically new in the box. It was still wrapped in wax paper, and the price tag on the box is $12.95. And if only we had those days back with us again. And because this was a 38 Special revolver, I went to Midway and ordered a new 38 Special 310 tool die set. And then I was good to go. Working away from the left, the Lyman 310 die set contains a neck sizing die, a case mouth expander die, a priming die, and a bullet seating die. The small piece that you'll see at the bottom of the screen, that little collet, that's a small shell adapter, and it's crucial, and I'll show you how that goes on in just a second. Now the Lyman 310 tool die set comes with pretty good instructions. They're about 95% good, and the missing 5% can really screw you up. This is a part that comes with a die set for 38 Special called a small case adapter, and it is a part that the instructions are largely silent on. So you might wonder when you open it up, what is it and where does it go? It looks a lot like a shell holder, and in some ways it is. Where it goes is right here from the underneath. Now the dies will screw in on top, but the shell adapter screws in right here. Alright, now we got it started. You just screw it in by hand until you get it all the way down. And you want it to line up with the extractor slot. So, I get that. So if you can see that, we need to get the slot in the adapter lined up with the extractor slot. And that's right there. And once you've done that, there's a small set screw. Goes in right here. And that's what's keeps it locked in place. And there we go. That'll make sure we're straight. Tighten it up. Now the claw can get through there. It doesn't stick. But that's what's going to guide our 38 Special shells. And if you don't use this, I can tell you that from experience, it actually will bend them like a banana when they go up into the die. Now the first die is the sizing die and also the primer removal die, decapping pin. And the dies screw in from the top. Now, this one, the decapping pin, is broken off, which happened to me almost as soon as I loaded it, because I was using some shells that have incredibly hard primers. And in fact, I have not even been able to get them out. These are Federal Premium nickel-plated shells, and I can't get those primers out even with a punch, though I can get them out on a conventional press. So I had to kind of change plans. So here's how I've been depriming. But if you're lucky, you won't run into this situation. Well, that broken decapping pin sent me to plan B to get the primers out. As you can see, got a spent primer. It's got to come out. What I'm going to use is a steel punch and a hammer, and that'll work just fine. In fact, you could use a small brad, anything small enough to actually get through the primer hole in the case. So I'm just going to pop that up there, give it a tap, and that's how we're getting all the primers out. Well, since we're decapping them off the press, that's going to be our first step. But for anybody who's got a fully functional tool, the first step will be decapping and neck sizing. And we'll use this die right here. And basically, we are only going to be sizing the case as far into it as the bullet's going to seat. So that's all we're going to do. Now, this is not a carbide tool. Now we'll just crunch that baby in, and the extractor grabs it, and we pull it out, and we are good to go. Not a carbide tool, so you could give it a little spray of lube or a little wipe of lube, and it'll help things along. All right, the next step in the process is to expand the case mouth to take the new bullet, and we're going to use this die. And it's readily identifiable because it has a white metal plug. So we're going to take our neck-sized case, pop her in there, crunch her down, pull it out, and the way we're going to know if we're good to go is if a bullet just goes in, and it does. So we are just fine. Alright, now the next step is to prime the sized cases. And we've got a special die for that. This one kind of goes in upside down. It has a plunger on it. And once I get screwed in, you'll see what I'm talking about. That plunger, let's catch the light there. That plunger is what seats the primer. Now I'll get a primer on here. Now, if you're like me, and you're used to using a Dillon or turret press or any sort of high capacity priming device, you are going to find this to be pretty extraordinary in terms of being slow, but it's interesting and it works very well. So here's what happens. This is just like a cutaway die. The case fits in there. We close the plunger, and it just seats the primer. And voila, we got a prime case. In our next step, we're going to seat a bullet. But before we do, I just want to show you something. There are two seating plungers that come with the set. And one is for round nose bullets, and one is for flat nose bullets. However, the flat nose bullet one you should only use with semi-wide cutters. If you try to use it with round nose flat points, you can see what happens. The bullet on the left, even though it has a flat point, was severely deformed by the flat point bullet seater. But the bullet on the right that has a rounded flat point, when I use the round nose bullet seater, it did not deform it. So that's the way you want to go. Okay, now we'll seat, put some powder in, we'll seat a bullet. And we're using black powder. And we'll
we'll just even that off. And this is 1.3 cc's, which is about 21 grains. So, get that full of black powder. Take a bullet. Just seat it in, start it off. Now, we've got our seating die on here, and we can tell because it has a black metal plug instead of the white metal plug from the expander die. And we're just going to feed it right up inside by hand, and then crunch it down good, and there we go, finished round. I mean, the next step, we'll take these babies out to the range and make them go bang. And then, of course, the test of whether or not we've got a good round is we take that round and we see if it'll chamber. And it does. Beautiful. So we know that we can load up good 38 special rounds and do it in a actual antique tool the way our ancestors would have.
Well, now we'll take our carefully handcrafted ammo and we'll go make it go bang. Here we go. Old time gun, old time ammo, big time fun.